Hello.
Yeah. And welcome everyone to a special episode of Growth with Tacos. Hey, Sue. All right. Good to see you're already here. Joining us today is special guest Tripper Clancy, Hollywood screenwriter. Actually, the screenwriter of one of my favorite films I've ever seen, StUber, which stars Dave Bautista. I absolutely love that movie, man. No lie. So, introduce yourself. Say hi.
Never mind. Thank you guys for having me. Appreciate it.
Oh, we appreciate you coming on and everything, man.
Thank you, man.
Yeah,
and thanks for making StUber.
Let's just talk StUber for the next hour.
We can definitely do that. I mean, we watched it 2 times on Christmas. The first time we all saw it was on Christmas Day in Iowa. We don't really have we didn't have like a family to go. I didn't have a family to really go back to on Christmas Day, and Rob and Pierce were both stranded in Iowa with me on the campaign, and we just sat around the house and we literally watched it twice after I bought it on Voodoo on Christmas Day, and it was beautiful.
It was that good.
I think Jason and I were messaging last week about how it's it's not a deep think piece, but it's the kind of movie that I feel like we all need right now, where you just want to zone out for 90 minutes and not think about or the world being on fire. So I'm glad you guys appreciated it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a blast from start to finish. I had read the little synopsis, and I went in with completely low expectations because I'd heard nothing about the movie beforehand. And I was like, okay, an Uber driver, this is not going to be good. And the movie was phenomenal. It has my utmost recommendation. And, of course, I saw it with good people as well, so that added to the experience. But yeah, thanks for making it, I suppose. Did you write... So let me ask, I guess, your procedure when screenwriting. Did you write it with any particular people in mind for certain roles? Like Dave Bautista was cast as, I would say, the main character, but did you write it in mind with Dave Bautista, or did he just happen to get the slot?
No, I didn't, because I didn't really know Dave. I think when I was writing it was probably around the time the first Guardians came out, so Dave really wasn't on my radar. And so you kind of picture actors that you've seen before in the roles, but then once we got into it with the studio and the director came on board, it was like, well, who are the new faces that we haven't seen play these roles before? It's like, we don't need to see Bruce Willis playing that kind of grizzled, tough guy cop again. We've seen it many times, so it's like, he's the guy that's going to bring some new life to it and a new perspective on it, and that's where Dave came in, and that's where Kumail came in. It's like neither one of those guys had done that specific role. Kumail did play an Uber driver in Big Sick, but it was a different role. So I think it's like, people you don't normally see. And honestly, when I wrote that script, I know we're going to talk politics, but I was thinking about how do you get a blue state Uber driver to pick up a red state cop? That was kind of one of the first ideas I had was how do you put these two different cultures in the same car? And even though there's nothing political in that movie, there is a very kind of old school masculinity, kind of red state vibe with Dave, and then kind of a more woke progressive vibe with Kumail. And that to me is straddling, I grew up in Texas. My family is split. I have conservatives in my family, liberals in my family. I'm obviously in LA where almost everybody's liberal. But I kind of understand both sides of that, so I wanted to represent that in the movie.
Yeah, I've also lived in both of those states, and I enjoyed living in both of them. I found the people great.
Where were you in
San Antonio.
Okay, nice. I grew up in Dallas, and I lived in Austin, before from there. So close.
Yeah, I've been to all of them. I was stationed out there when I was in the Air Force.
Oh, wow, nice.
So, yeah, not too bad. Could have been better, could have been worse.
You might want to mute when you eat.
Oh, no.
Sorry. Keep it on,
I know
man.
this is Growth with Tacos and all about eating, but we can hear you digesting, man.
I shouldn't be talking with a mouthful, but because I'm having my headphones on right now. These headphones have a...
So you live in LA right now, but basically you're saying you have roots in Texas.
Yes.
And Jason is telling me that you're actually doing some political initiative out in Texas. Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't know if what I'm doing is special, but I basically, like a lot of people, started to see 2016 happening over again, and that, November of 2016 was one of just a dark time for hello Megan, dark time for a lot of people, and I think we all felt sucker punched that this happened, even though none of us expected it. So it's I just don't want to wake up on November 4th or November 15th, whenever the votes are tallied, and feel like I didn't do enough. And my wife is the same way. It's like we just started. It wasn't really just like a big conscious effort. We didn't wake up and say, we have to start doing this. We just both gravitated towards figuring out what can we do. And so for me, that's been doing a lot of phone banking. I picked Texas because I am from there and I know how to talk to people in Texas. I probably have a little bit more of a Southern drawl when I get on the phone with them, just so I fit in. It's just like a natural thing that happens. But I feel like I understand the culture there, and it makes it easier to get on the phone and try to talk to somebody about, have you registered? And now it's more about, are you going to vote? And if you do know how to vote, if you are going to vote, are you going to hand deliver it to the registrar's office, or to the county registrar? Are you going to put it in the mail? Are you going to early vote? And then just walking them through that online, what that process is. And I go through an organization, Texas Democrats, and the one that I've done the most is called Dance and Dial. They play music at the beginning. There's a big Zoom call where they walk you through what the script is going to be, and then you get on and start rolling calls. And I think it's something that, and Jason knows I've been tweeting about this, because it's like, voting is fine. Like, we should all vote, obviously, and we don't vote enough in this country, and that's our obligation. I think it is our civic duty to vote. But like, we should all ask ourselves, what else can we do to get the vote out there? And I think phone banking, text banking, and there's a lot of other kind of things that we can talk about that just beyond what you're doing in your own house. And honestly, I have a beer. I get on the calls, I get hung up on, and I just go to the next call. Like, if people tell me, take me off the list, for the most part, people are very polite. And, you might make 50 calls, and there might be 2 people on those 50 that are like, oh, I wasn't planning on voting. Can you tell me more about Joe Biden? If you can believe it, people want to know, what's the deal with this guy, Joe Biden? And in Texas, there's a Senate race there. John Cornyn's the incumbent, MJ Hager's the Democrat, and so a lot of my time is spent trying to talk them into who MJ is, what she stands for, why they should vote for her. So that's kind of in a nutshell what I've been doing. Is probably not every day, but every other day, for the most part, I try to hop on for at least an hour and phone bank.
That's good on you, man. Good on you for being involved.
Everything you do, like I phone bank a lot. Like, I'm here in Oklahoma, but I still phone bank. Like, for out of all the states, and I'm currently working on a couple of local campaigns here for Abby Broyles in Senate and Kinder Horn in the House of Representatives, trying to make Oklahoma a little bit more blue, what you're doing in Texas. And it's a lot of work, and I don't think a lot of people realize how much they could be doing. They're like on Twitter and social media constantly like, you have to do this, and this to flip everything blue, but they're never actually practicing it themselves. And yeah, it's just like what you actually doing it, and telling people how to do it and everything like that, and giving them the step-by-step process is like really cool. And then you had mentioned like your wife has been writing things and stuff. For people in Texas. That's something I haven't heard of anyone doing.
Yeah, it's a thing that she found about a month ago, where she's sending postcards to people to encourage them to vote, and she gets through the site, and I just texted her so I can have her tell me the exact site that she used. It's called postcardstotovoters.org. So we can plug that, postcardstototers.org. And basically, you sign up, and you have to go through a short little approval process, but then you're handwriting postcards and sending them out across the country to a list of people that have been selected. These are people that have registered to vote that maybe haven't voted in the last couple presidential elections. So these are people, this is like, whether you want to call them independents or just maybe lazy, or people that don't feel like the presidential vote affects them. And she handwrites, she's probably done 250 of these postcards, and she also printed a bunch more and she recruited probably 8 or 9 other people that have each done 50 to 200 postcards. So that's just one of those things where it's like it's almost like a you see people that do like Rodin and Fields and these kinds of like what are those called? Not pyramid schemes. Those like
multi-level marketing.
And it's like the same mentality with this stuff. It's like we don't get money for it, but we get satisfaction of knowing that we can actually change this election and get rid of Trump. So it's like, you start to recruit other people, those people start to recruit other people, and it becomes contagious because there are a lot of people that want to do something, they just don't know what it is. And like postcards and text banking is great if you're like non-confrontational. If you don't want to like deal with the stress of being on a phone call, there are a lot of ways that you can volunteer your time that you don't have to actually get on the phone. So
I'm curious a lot about your approach that you're using when you're talking with random Texans, because everybody has different things that speak to them. And although you can like try to, I guess, recognize enough patterns to come up with the best pitch, it's pretty hard to do if they haven't really shared too much yet and you're just calling them out of the blue, right?
Totally. So
I think what do you find to be like effective? Do you generally promote Joe Biden, or are you more antagonizing Trump? Like, what's your general approach? Are you just trying to feel him out as a person first?
Yeah. I mean, I think some of it is from, as a screenwriter, I'm pitching TV shows and movies and pitching my takes. And so you're used to kind of walking into what's usually a cold room and having to like win over a group of people with an idea. So I kind of use that.
So you're used to it.
Yeah, I am. I mean, nobody ever tells me to fuck off in a pitch meeting, whereas people do tell me sometimes on a phone call.
You've never gotten that before in a pitch meeting, really?
Not yet. It's probably coming, but
I'm probably just that bad. But
if someone tells you to fuck off in a TV pitch meeting, then you really done something wrong. No offense, Jason, but like
I know.
He probably did.
I wear this badger pride, though.
But the thing they tell you, and all these organizations, if anyone's watching this and they want to volunteer their time, pick the state that you like, Google it with the word Democrats next to it, and you will find Wisconsin Democrats, Georgia Democrats, Florida Democrats, and they will all have links to how you can volunteer your time or your money, of course. But when you hop on these things, there's a coordinator there that will walk everyone through the Zoom call. So we might have 200 people on a Zoom, and the Texas Democrats coordinator is going with a presentation, page by page. This is how you talk to people. This is how you get them on the phone. And the first time I did it, I watched the whole presentation. It was like 20 minutes. And then now I chime in for the Zoom, and then I tap out and start making calls. But the one thing they tell you is try to keep people on the phone. If people are on the fence or they're not sure, just try to be a friendly ear. Try to talk to them. Try to keep the conversation going. And then not only that, if they say, "Okay, you convinced me, I'm going to vote," you say, "Well, if you have a second, do you mind? Do you have a computer nearby? Can you go to mytexasvotes.com?" And that's a site that we're pushing for Texas Democrats, where that has all the information they need: how to register, how to vote, where the polling locations are. So it's like, if you can, you keep them on the phone long enough to go to their computer, to get online or go on their phone, and don't let them hang up until they really figured it all out and know exactly what their plan is to vote. And that's hard to do because usually someone's making dinner, or they're having a cocktail, they're home from work, or they're with their kids, whatever it is. And it's like, you have to try to fit that little space in their life and convince them. So it just, the more you do it, the better you get at it.
For sure.
Definitely.
So you seem primarily concerned with the presidential election, but of course there's tons of other, votes up and down the ballot. Are you promoting like any of those other candidates or initiatives as well? Yeah. So, I mean, I guess I have 2 points of thought on this, 2 schools of thought. But one is, sorry, I just got a calendar reminder that probably dinged on the thing. I've donated to a lot of smaller campaigns, just with
with $20 here and there. Because I do think those smaller campaigns, dollar goes a lot farther than it does than giving to Joe Biden. That's just the truth. Same with we all want to see Mitch McConnell lose, but I think the dollar that you donate to Mike Espy in Mississippi has the potential to go further than it does if you donate to McGrath in Kentucky. That's just because.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
McConnell's like so just wedged in there in that culture that he's never going to be voted out. He's going to die in office at this point.
He will die in office. But like Mike Espy's opponent, Cindy Hyde-Smith, didn't even raise $1 million in the last quarter. So it's like that is like ripe for the taking. I feel like nobody really likes it. The Republican Party doesn't even like her. So so the smaller races, my strategy has been, if you start big and broad with Biden, on the phone, you can start to go down levels to, so I start with Biden, and then I talk to him about MJ Hager, who's the Senate candidate for the Democrats. And then if I can, I will Google the House race that is in their district and start to try to get there. But that requires like a lot of keeping them on the phone long enough. I do think a place like Texas, having grown up there, they're very big in a straight ticket voting. So if you can get people on board with Biden, that is going to trickle down into a lot of the smaller candidates. And it's a good thing and it's a bad thing. My brother was a Republican judge in Dallas County in 2008. And that was a big blue wave. And he was Republican. So, it makes local courts, it makes it harder. But I do think it is to the advantage of Democrats this time around, because we obviously like to control the House, continue to control the House, and to flip the Senate. And in places like Texas and a lot of other places, the census, this state Senate in a lot of states is going to determine the redistricting for the next 10 years. In a place like Texas, which has gerrymandering problems, that's a big deal. So I do hope, I am kind of banking on a trickle down effect. But if you guys have ideas or whatever, like I'm open to, like, this is a two-way street. I'm still making calls tomorrow. I'm text banking I'm actually switching up. I'm a text bank for Mike Espy tomorrow in Mississippi. So if you have ideas for how to also get the word out about the smaller, more local candidates, then I am all ears.
Well, pretty much
focus on the smaller local ones like that, House and Senate and stuff like that, and everything this go around, because I think so much has been, so big of a deal is already being made about Biden and the presidential election and everything, that I feel that we can peel enough people away to focus on the smaller ones that we have a chance of flipping. So like I'll phone bank for Blair in Tennessee, or Adam Christensen in Florida, or David Kim out in California, because he's essentially a Republican.
Yeah, he's like a mile away from me. His district is. I'm not in David's district, but he's very close.
He's an awesome guy. We've had him on the show. We absolutely love him and everything. But like my favorite thing is to do it, and how I break the ice a lot when I'm text banking or phone banking or even going on the doors, is I ask them, their opinion on like what happened locally in like sports, because here in Oklahoma it's big. You're making a call in Oklahoma, the first thing you ask is like, hey, did you see the Sooners game? What do you think about this? And I know nothing about football. I'm completely oblivious. So I'm like studying everything beforehand and reading all these articles I can, so I can quote stuff, and it breaks the ice and it makes them feel more comfortable. Like you're not there immediately to confront their beliefs and stuff like that. So that's like the biggest tip I can give on like phone banking, and even if you're canvassing door to door, which has sadly become, even in the time of a pandemic, it's kind of become necessary that we do this, because we just got to get people to pay attention. And we're competing with Republicans who are out there doing the same thing. So,
the conventional wisdom to get people to vote the way you want them to vote is you do one of two things. One, you just motivate a existing supporter to actually vote, or two, you actually flip someone. And usually the second is more difficult than the first, but not always, right? So I would think that if you're trying to motivate people in Texas to vote blue, like if you're only concerned with the national level race, the with the presidency, that they're going to kind of be demotivated and demoralized or unmotivated and demoralized to actually vote, because historically Texas is always blue or red, right?
Yeah.
But I think like you probably have a better chance if you say like, hey, this congressional race is a very close race. Your vote is really going to matter. I would think that you'd have a better chance with that.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea. And by the way, like if there's a house race that you like or that you care about, or like it's on your phone,
Donna Imam.
What he said.
Donna,
Out of Austin, Texas. She is fantastic.
I gave to her campaign, but I I could do more. I could phone bank just for her in just her district. And it's like that is probably where I should start spending my time the next 2 weeks, is like trying to go smaller in places that your phone call really does go make a difference. I have
it's just by the numbers.
Totally. No, absolutely. Yeah. And I think, I'm still on Facebook. I'm one of those people. I don't know why I'm still on there. It's such a horrible site. It's so dangerous.
Me too.
And being from Texas, I'd say half of the people that like my Facebook friends are in Texas still, and that is a mixed bag of the whole spectrum of politics. And it's really taught me a lot. It like staying on Facebook has educated me into like what people back in Dallas and Austin and other places are thinking and feeling, and it ranges everything from QAnon to like hardcore, left of Bernie. The whole gamut is there, and so what it's taught me is it's very hard to flip somebody that is a Trump supporter. Like that is just, and it's hard to get them to vote anywhere on the ticket. But what I've also learned is that there are a lot of people that feel disenfranchised, that feel like their voice has never been heard in Texas, that didn't vote in 2016 because they're like, what's the point? And I do feel like if you get those people, even if you get them on Biden or get them how much they hate Trump, and honestly, I never have to talk shit about Trump. It usually comes from the other end of the phone. Usually I'm like, hey, I want to talk to you about Joe Biden. And they're like, well, I fucking hate Trump. And I'm like, well, okay, you can make this call very easy for me. But I do find there are a lot of people that have been lacking motivation. And it's really just about, in my mind, convincing all those people. Texas is like 48th, I think, in voter turnout, maybe 45th or 48th. It's also the absolute hardest state to get registered and to vote. So that's why I focus on that. It's a state that where it's almost purple. It's like it's always voted Republican, but it's very close. And if we just can get the vote out, we can actually make a difference there.
Yeah, I do see that like a lot of them, at least for me, when it comes to like phone banking or even just like canvassing, I don't really. When it comes to somebody who is already like a staunch Trump supporter, as you said, is much harder to do versus those who are independents or who have never voted, who just don't want to vote. You just gotta give them that little nudge. You just gotta plant that seed in their mind to go, oh wait, okay, I guess my vote is important, or maybe I should consider this. And it takes a little bit of that like massaging to get to where that is.
Yeah.
But it definitely feels so good. Like once okay, like this is why it's so important to like do this. And I think like all of us like who worked on the Yang campaign, we experienced that too. Like back in Iowa, got people all over the spectrum. And there'll be certain things that you don't like or that they don't like about certain whoever is running. But if you're able to nail on the parts that like they find as important, I think that is very, very helpful for anybody who's like planning on doing phone banking or text banking. Like, what do you value? What do you think is important? I always try to like go for that approach.
Yeah. I mean, you guys find like when you're doing this, whether it's canvassing or phone banking, like how I feel like things have become a lot harder due to the way people receive their news now. Like, I feel like I'm competing against like a meme that got passed around Facebook, as opposed to like because we're all getting news from different places. And that's something I'm staying on Facebook, is that like a lot of my Republican people that I know they get their news on Facebook. Like they get it from some group called Patriots for such and such, or People for Police, or whatever it is. It's like that's how they get their news sources, and it's like it becomes very hard when I'm on a call. That's how someone receives their news. to try to convince them. But I think what you mentioned is like making it personal to them and like asking them first what they care about, and then translating that into how they can vote if that's what they actually care about.
That's how we got Trump voters out in Iowa.
Yeah.
Honestly, so like I wish in hindsight that we had talked to Republicans and Trump supporters more than we did the Democrats, because like our Democrat turnout of people that said like, yes, I will caucus for Andrew Yang was abysmal. It was like 1 out of like 20 or even less some places, right? But the Trump supporters, the Republicans that we actually managed to persuade and bring over, we're talking like 4 out of 5 showed up.
Yeah.
They were incredibly reliable, and we did just what you said. Like abortion was a very frequent, important issue to a lot of them, and we would be like, you know, UBI. Like, we're not going to lie to you and tell you that Andrew Yang is for repealing Roe versus Wade, but we can tell you that UBI is going to reduce the amount of abortions in the first place, right? And like between two options, like this is just a better option for you. And we would have people that actively like still supported Trump just go like, huh, you know what? Andrew Yang just might be a better pick. So we didn't like bring them over by lambasting Trump and telling them how awful of a person Trump was. We were just like, hey, Andrew Yang could be a better choice. And a surprising number of them went for it. Like, I feel like, especially, you might recognize this with your friends in Texas, any conservative really doesn't have a leader to vote for in this race.
Yeah, no.
Trump's not a conservative. Biden's not conservative. Me, myself, like I've grown up in a conservative family. I am, whenever I'm hanging out with Yang Gang, I am easily like the most conservative person in the room, it feels like. And I'm just thinking, as someone that wants to often vote conservative, like I don't have someone. I literally don't have a good option. So at that point, like I would think that those people are much easier to persuade if you can just offer them basically something else that they care about.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's a really good example too. Is just like, because I do think single issue voters are one of the big problems of our entire election process. Like,
sure,
I wish that wasn't the case, but there are people that will, as long as Roe v. Wade is still intact, like that's their vote every time.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter who's standing there. You could have a rock at the podium. It's like, that's fine. I'll vote for that rock because I know the rock is going to try to repeal Roe v. Wade. So giving them some data to show them that like actually this, this is what's actually going to happen, as opposed to just like kind of the fear mongering, which is what people are usually used to. That's really smart. And I think it can probably be done on any of the single issues. There's probably a version of that can be done. And we should probably be hitting those harder,
I mean, I've always found myself as like a very all-encompassing voter until this past election cycle. I jumped on Andrew Yang's campaign for one issue only, and that was his like special education, his idea for a federal standard for special education. Because I'm autistic myself, and I knew how hard it was growing up and everything for my father to find proper education for me and all the hell that he went through. And Andrew Yang's first politician ever to even mention a federal standard for it. So I that's when I became a single issue voter this go around in the primaries, at least, Now I'm like, obviously Andrew's not in it, so it's no longer a single issue thing for me. So I'm all encompassing again. But
don't you
I think with those single issues, people are always just gonna, it's usually something that they are very rooted to and care about for some reason that's ingrained into their psyche. And you kind of have to play therapist and find out the reason for it to try to lift them out of it so they can see more.
Definitely.
Yeah. I'm not a single issue voter by any stretch, but I definitely have like a ranking of my most important things. My most important thing is being of good moral character and being a positive role model and leader. It is literally my number one criteria for president.
That used to be a baseline, though, for the president.
At least.
Unfortunately, if you're looking at who we've nominated this time around and who we nominated last time around, I'm really not too enthused about those. But that's like my number one issue, because I believe that beyond what they actually do while in the office, is quite frankly more impactful the image that they represent to not just the American people but also the world. I believe that has repercussions down the road. You see, like today, we're all divided and at each other's throats. And I think the huge part of that is because Trump is actively encouraging that. Trump actively likes to stir up drama. He's a reality TV star, right?
Exactly.
Like that's what he likes to do.
He's conditioned for it.
Right.
Thank you, NBC.
Right.
Yeah.
And like it's kind of weird to say that it impacts people a lot more than they would want it to or realize. But like whether like things can snowball as well. Like if they hear some bad thing on the news, then they might be in a pissy mood because it reminded them of some horror story, or just maybe whatever the reason is, they're in a pissy mood. So then they're driving on the way to work, and when they're driving on the way to work, they're in a pissy mood. They cut someone else off. So now that dude's having a bad day, right? And like it can just snowball all from just a simple thing. And this isn't even policy related. This is just, is this person a upstanding, respectable individual? And then there's actually the policies. Like foreign policy is my number 2 thing. But yeah, my number 1 is just being of good moral character.
Yeah. And
I mean, it seems easy enough.
Right? You'd
you
hope.
would think so. You would hope so. I can't believe this, man. We're in a crazy time, man. Tripper, I do have like one question. Because for me, like I always find it really interesting when people who are in the creative field, say like artists, writers, go into like get really into the political world. 'Cause that's the same thing with me too. Like I come from a music and acting background, and it wasn't until like this recent cycle that I really started to push myself to understand policy more. But the thing for me is that I'm always trying to figure out, how do creative people and artists leverage their talents and skills to help push that conversation forward and to engage more people to be involved in the political field, especially those who've been like disengaged and disenfranchised?
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like there is, I guess, first off, like why people in like different artistic fields, whether it's music or entertainment, and like why a lot of times we feel passionate about politics also is, I think, and it's not just us, it's a lot with you guys too, but to me, it's empathy is kind of the common denominator, where
Yeah.
I don't only care about what happens to me. I don't only care about what are my taxes going to look like if so-and-so gets elected. Like I care about other people out there that have it worse off than me. What's going to happen to them if they don't have health care? That's what's happened if they don't have education. What happens if they're buried in student loan debt and they can't ever get a foothold in society? And I feel like those are things that's why I want to make a difference. I mean, that sounds cheesy, but it's like, that's why I care. That's why I want people to vote, is because I'm not just thinking about myself. And that is something that I've noticed is a divide, speaking broad terms here, between liberals and conservatives. Is, the conservatives I see and that I know, it's, if there's someone down the block that needs a surgery and they can't pay for it and they need a GoFundMe, everybody will chip in. Everybody that's a Republican will be like, oh, I know that person, I'm going to chip in. Here's $1,000, here's $500, like whatever it is. If it's a person 5 blocks away in a different neighborhood, they don't know them, they are not contributing to that GoFundMe. And I feel like that's basically what I think about politics, is like, I'm willing to chip in more tax dollars if I can help somebody that I've never met that lives in a different place. And that's basic empathy, I feel like. The other part of that was, how do we use our skills? That was the other part of the question, I think. And for me, it's like, because I'm a writer, I'm sure I annoy the shit out of people because I have so many conservative friends on Facebook. I do write kind of lengthy Facebook posts. I know it's fucking miserable, but I can't resist. But I do it very respectfully, in a way where I do think left and right will read it and will digest it. And I get, some people comments. Occasionally I'll get that's fake news, blah, blah, blah. But like, I try to pick topics that are like very simple and straightforward. And like, there's not a lot of gray area. Like COVID response is a topic that like is very easy to talk about in a way that we all should be able to be like, well, that's fucked up. Like, there's the COVID response team is basically doing nothing right now because a guy that was a radiologist 2 months ago is now leading the COVID response task force. Like, that's fucked up. We should all be upset about that, whether you're Republican or Democrat. And if I can do enough of those using my words to like politely influence people, I do feel like 1 or 2 or 3 people might vote that weren't otherwise going to vote. And like, I know it's silly, but every vote does count.
Have you been able to like engage like in-depth conversations like through some of your writing and posts?
Yeah, I've got some pretty intense back and forth, but like again, I never make it personal. Like that's where like you lose on Twitter or Facebook is like, fuck you, you're a such and such, or like, go back to your real estate job, whatever like whatever you look in their bio. Like you can't do that. You have to keep it about policy, about the issues, and it's kind of like you said earlier about trying to figure out what's important to a certain person. If you can figure that out, you can usually win the argument by explaining to them that like voting for Trump is actually against that thing that they say that they care about. And I feel like that's kind of where I make the most headway, is like using my words strategically to kind of like prove the point. I also come from like a family of everybody in my family is an attorney, so like I grew up having to like have long arguments with people, and I feel like that is helpful. It's good.
Yep.
That's a skill.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, I'm a writer as well, and I find myself a lot of the time able to empathize with people on the other side because I very often write characters from all different spectrums and everything, and so therefore I feel like I know what it's like to be them even though I'm not them because I've written them before. Do you ever find yourself in that situation where like, oh my God, I know this person because I've kind of written them, in a way?
Yeah, totally. I feel like I do. I mean, like I said with StUber, I feel like a lot of my, I've got a lot of projects where like I'm aware of like people that live on both sides of the divide, and I write characters on both sides of the divide, and I feel like, and when you think about it that way, it's like, Trump himself is a bad human being, but like you understand why people in certain places rolled the dice on him in 2016. It was like, this other way's not working. Let's try something crazy. He says we can get jobs back. It's like Rust Belt. You kind of understand if you put yourself in their shoes. I think it's like, it's the people that voted for him and that are again going back to vote after they've seen 4 years of it. That's where I take issue.
Yeah.
But
I find it very hard to make an excuse the second time around for them.
Yeah.
Like, I'm very forgiving for the first time. Like, I get, like, everything that's ever happened. Like, most of the military families settle in the Midwest, and Hillary, as a senator, withheld military pay raises for non-officers for 4 years in the Senate. I get it, so I get that spectrum. I get that she was very uppity as the first lady and said, if I got a good education in Arkansas, quite obviously the educational standards in, this area isn't necessarily what's needed. And then, like, in her presidential run and while she was like Secretary of State, she called everyone throughout the Midwest deplorables, and that factory farming can do better than the family farm. And so I got it the first time, but like this, like the second time around, I can't possibly make an excuse for it,
Well, and I think it's sad. I mean, when I think about conservatives, I think it is sad that like the party has become very kind of discombobulated because of Trump. It's like you see like Senate races that are close. Republicans are like trying to put 1 foot on the Trump vote and 1 foot away from him. Like that's the John Cornyn in Texas is kind of backpedaling on a couple of things because he's trying to like create separation because Trump's numbers are going down. And it's like, I don't think that's good for the country in general. Even as someone who's not a conservative, I wish that the conservatives had like a real point of view and a real like North Star and a real message and a platform, because then we could actually like debate policy back and forth. We could actually come to something in the middle, maybe, where try to find something that represents people the best. But I feel like they're chasing the whims of a maniac that changes day to day. And in doing that, they have no ground to stand on. So I think that's that's a disservice to conservative voters as well as the rest of the country.
Yeah, I mean, Trump's policy seems to be chased by whatever he sees on the Blaze that day, or some insane like website that whose 90% of their views come from IP farms in China and Russia, which is just odd considering the fact he says he has no connections with either of those two.
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, I think in my view I'm not a conservative by any means, and I haven't really had like many conservative thoughts since I was like in high school, and Ralph Nader recruited me to the liberal side and everything when he came to speak at the school. But like Pierce can probably attest to my opinion possibly being true that the Republicans haven't had a real North Star in their camp since McCain's failed run. Like no one ever really picked up the mantle since McCain in 2008 and just like carried their torch forward in a way.
Yeah, Paul Ryan tried for a little bit, and it was literally too hard. he ended up, resigning, if I remember correctly, from not resigning, but like
Party?
Sorry,
wasn't he Tea Party though?
No, Paul Ryan was never Tea Party.
Okay.
But he ended up being Speaker of the House until he didn't want it anymore.
Yeah.
Like that's what happens. So yeah, I agree with you. And this was, a while ago. I think an actionable thing I was thinking about when you were mentioning Facebook posts over there, Tripper. An actionable thing I think that's useful for people to keep in mind when you're discussing something serious, often politics, with someone on Facebook, and basically it's turning into a debate. You have two different choices, and it's important to recognize which choice you're going for based on what you want to accomplish. And those two choices are persuade the person you're talking to or influence the audience of the people that are watching.
Yes.
Because chances are you're going to make more impact with, I guess, persuading the audience if you basically embarrass the other person, which is classically what you do in a debate. The point isn't actually to persuade the person you're debating. The point is to basically say like, no, I'm right, and this is how wrong you are. Wham, bam, kaboom, right?
Like every debate we've seen on TV.
But people don't like being embarrassed.
Yeah.
It turns out we don't like feeling that way. And that actually just like further hardens them against you, because you've basically just outed yourself as an enemy of them. So why would they ever want to listen to you? Even if you are factually correct, you could bring as many facts as you want. You could say it as eloquently as you want. If you're embarrassing them, you're probably not going to persuade them.
Yes.
So if you're trying to actually persuade the person you're talking with, you have to come across definitely with a perspective of empathy, but also understanding where they're coming from and just trying to be as polite as possible. And some people you can't persuade. It just doesn't happen. But, other people, especially over time, like it is possible. I was saying earlier, like conservatives are truly looking, I believe, for a different answer, because Trump is not a conservative. And when you point this out to him, like if you have a better answer, then you're going to go places. For a lot of people, Joe Biden's not that answer, but it could be some other thing. It could be a policy, or it could be someone else down the ballot, or whatever,
100%.
Totally. I mean, I think it's a great distinction, and that's kind of my mindset when I get into any kind of Facebook debate. Is just like I can tell. You can tell quickly early on if somebody's not going to change their mind, and then it's just a matter of I make the best case that I can make, knowing that other people are going to watch what's happening and read and be like, oh, that is, maybe there's someone else out there that doesn't even like it or respond, but like it's actually helped them figure something out. That's probably why I do it. Honestly, it's not really the people that I go back and forth with. Like those people, you can tell them anything. And I went on one where I thought it was like a pretty good faith back and forth, and then they said, well, nothing in the news. I posted like a Washington Post article as my response. Like, Washington Post is, it's owned by Jeff Bezos. Nothing in there is truthful. And I'm like, all right, well, if I can't give you a Washington Post article that's like, that has 20 sources in it, then I'm just not going to win this debate. I mean, so then you just kind of like pick your battles and you should just end the thread there, and I think I'm just down. Because I'm like, if someone's going to go with fake news on everything, then like it's very hard to convince them of anything. You know, they've got their own fiction in their head of what they think is happening in reality.
I mean, I think with the advent of the internet, we've become like a country and a society that like thought of like what's news is no longer what actually news is. You know, it's opinions guised as news in a way.
Yeah, totally.
Like, because no one gives facts anymore. CNN doesn't really give facts. MSNBC doesn't give facts. Fox News doesn't even know what a fact is. I'm pretty sure they can even find it in a dictionary. You know, and you have like all these sites and stuff like The Blaze and The Guardian and The Hill and everything, and they're not stating facts. Like, no one states facts. It's so you have to like.
Yeah.
You find yourself going to news sites of other countries like Britain and Canada and Australia looking for a fact. And it's just kind of embarrassing as a country that we've like devolved into just, you know, opinion is fact type nation, you know?
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
that makes sense.
But I find that we've reached a point where like a well-sourced stories from you know, respectable reporters that will be a New York Times piece had the same credibility for a lot of people than coming from the what's the Tucker Daily, what's it called, Daily Wire? I don't know.
There's the Daily Wire, the Daily Beast, a bunch of stuff.
Literally Tucker Carlson, but like it's like they're all given equal weight on the internet.
Yeah.
Regardless of how well the story was sourced, what went into it, what the reporting is, it's like so that's what's dangerous. Just like you're competing against that. It's like there's so much noise that a lot of people are just throwing their hands up and like, well, it must all be fake. And so, anyways, it's part of the battle. I don't know how we overcome that.
I mean, I think
Also, at the same time, oh, sorry, Rob.
No, sorry. I was just saying. I mean, I think like what you're doing right now, Tripper, is exactly how we battle it step by step. Is like engaging with people on an individual level. Because if everybody's going to keep saying, "Oh, well, this news article or this media company is fake," like, but you as a person, you're not fake. And I've been following you on Facebook or on Instagram for this many years. So that I think holds even way more credibility than some reporter or some journalist, even though they are really, really credible. And I don't want to take away from any of their jobs because it is really important to correctly and rightfully report. But if everybody's having that mindset of like, I don't believe it right off the bat, or they just or they just read the title, the headline, and that's all they do, it's not going to be enough. Versus like what you're doing is that you are making these posts and you're making it personable. And if people are commenting, you respond back. So that I think is part of the battle. Is like that's why. Oh yeah, that's why it is every vote counts. That's why it is every person who does get involved with it plays a part with it to change the narrative. Yeah. I'm sorry, Pierce. I cut you off. My bad.
Yeah, sure. I thought that was worth saying. I was going to say at the same time, we're seeing quite frankly, the journalistic integrity of these institutions that you were mentioning as respectable. We're seeing them plummet. I remember seeing a piece from the New Yorker saying that the United States was worse than Nazi Germany. I'm like, really? Like that's your perspective?
Take offense to that.
Yeah, exactly. Like that is incredibly offensive to any of the families of the more than 6 million victims of the concentration camp, murders, right?
But if there's an article I want to share, I read the article and I also click on the author. I click to see who it is, and like there are reporters with really good track records. There are some that aren't. Like if you look at the New York Post story about the Biden and the computer and all that, it's like, look at who actually wrote that. It's like that's somebody that was, I think, working for Sean Hannity a year ago. So it's like you have to do what's hard is you have to do due diligence if you're gonna post something that has a link to an article. The New Yorker piece, like I think what a lot of people do mistakenly is they link editorials and treat them like they're fact. And like there's actual, I mean, you guys might disagree with it, but there were actually great reporters at a lot of newspapers that actually source the material and actually write good pieces. There are also a lot of editorials. And there's
BuzzFeed News surprised me when they were still running. BuzzFeed News surprised me as actually having very well sourced articles. It shocked me. you know?
And that's the thing, you have to read the article to find out. Like if you can
Right.
see in the article itself, usually I think if you're discerning, you're like, oh, well, they interviewed this person, this person, this person. Okay, I'm going to give this some credibility. But because editorials and straight news get kind of jumbled together, you do end up with these insane things. And by the way, New York Times will have super far right conservative people write editorials, and it's also under the New York Times. And it's like so. I don't know. It's. You're right. It's not as straightforward. You can't just like look at the name on the masthead and be like, oh, this is going to be a great truthful piece. You do have to do a little bit of digging, and most people don't.
Yeah,
True.
which is why like what you're doing, you by doing the digging and then like posting it for people, you already have way more than knowledge. So if anybody were to like combat you, you have way more ammunition to play with. You know, kind of like going back to like the attorney type of like style of like, I know way more about this article or about this issue. I've done my due diligence, but you just read the headline. That's it.
Well, it's nobody likes to like post anything on anywhere that where like someone replies and be like, "Oh, actually, you're a fucking idiot." So
Yeah.
it's just self-preservation, right? I want to like
100%.
try not to post bullshit if I can avoid it.
Well, we have about 10 minutes left. I want to give a shout out to Taco Pizza. I had never known this stuff existed until today. Pollo Hacienda had closed, so like I couldn't get tacos delivered. So I went with Taco Pizza. That was on a menu here, and it was pretty fucking good. And I want to ask you about this this show that you're doing on this mobile network with Kevin Hart. That I found very interesting, like the action school.
Die Hard?
Yeah, Die Hard. So season 1 is up on the platform. It's called Quibi. It's an app that you have to download. It's a bunch of short episodes. So season 1 is 10 episodes, 8 minutes each. You can watch the whole thing in 80 minutes. And then we're working on season 2 now. Trying to shoot it, I don't know, probably March, maybe June. I'm not really sure. We're trying to figure out. COVID has made things very difficult for production. So sometime in 2021, we'll be shooting season 2 of Die Hard with Kevin and John Travolta and Natalie Emmanuel from Game of Thrones. And then I'm also shooting another show for that same platform, Varsity Blues, which was a movie back when I was in high school, probably before your time. But
I love the movie. I'm older than I look.
Good.
So I remember Varsity Blues.
You know that movie. With Vanderbeek and the rest of them. I'm doing
it inspired me the greatest Chris Evans meme ever. Him in a whipped cream bikini.
So yeah, we're going to shoot that hopefully in February or March next year. But yeah, I also want to throw out some taco places that are great. If I can.
Go for it.
If you do yours, I don't know if anyone's watched this from LA. I'd say my 2 favorite taco places in LA. One is called Homestay Tacos, which is from people from Texas that moved here. In Texas, if you guys, I think Pierce used to live there, you probably know queso, which is like a melted cheese, spicy cheese that you dip tortilla chips into. Homestay in LA is wonderful queso, and they make their own flour tortillas, beautiful tacos. And then another one is a taco truck called Leo's Tacos, and I think it's the best taco truck in LA. All their tacos.
I knew I liked you.
Al Pastor tacos, off the spit. They're all $1 each. They're amazing.
Oh, man.
Anyways, that's my taco plug.
Nice. Yeah, by all means, man. I've always said, it's easier to have serious topics be heard and understood when you have a full belly.
Definitely. Food and drinks.
Yeah, I can't wait to get back to LA this December.
Yeah.
I miss it so much.
So Tripper, if we could poke your mind more. So you are, screenwriter, one of my favorite movies I've ever seen. How did you get started in this? How did you get to the point of where you are? What's next? I mean, I know you just mentioned the Kevin Hart, but I guess how have things changed as well over the last half year?
Definitely. I'm curious.
They've changed a lot. Yeah. I mean, I got to where I'm at just by I love telling stories. I love. I grew up playing a lot of music, piano and guitar, and I love to write music. And then I started writing stories and screenplays in college, and I just kept doing it. I came to LA.
Do you play D&D?
I didn't know anybody. So I worked a day job for 5.5 years as I was writing scripts, and then I just kept writing. And then one of those scripts was good enough to like get passed around town and kind of like open up a lot of doors, got me my first few like screenwriting jobs, and I've been doing it for now 10, 11 years. The thing that most people don't know is that most screenplays and TV scripts never get made. So like you can sell a script, but every studio is probably developing 20 projects for one that they actually make. So
Development hell.
Most of my career, over half my projects.
I made an entire career off selling stuff that'll never get seen.
Exactly. It's crazy, but it's just, so you sell something as like the first hurdle, or you book a job, that's the first hurdle. Then it's like, well, how does this shit get made? It's just, some of it's luck, some of it's an actor coming on board. But it's been a blast. The last 4 or 5 years for me have been like really fun, and things have gotten, more things have gotten made, more things are in the pipeline to get made. And that's like, aside from the money, it's just like, that's all you really want. It's like to write something and see like actors perform it, a director shoot it, a DP, like see it on TV or on a movie screen. So for me, it's been, the last 6 months has been strange because I was writing on a show for Netflix, and we had our season 2 was going to happen. And then it became too expensive because of COVID restrictions. So they canceled the show. And I had spent like 7 or 8 months writing that show. And now the world will never get to see it. So it's like, and also like, Jason probably knows this, but like, you write a movie, you're giving 300 people jobs for the next 3 months if the movie gets made. So it's like, it's not just a screenwriter or director or actors who do get paid a lot. There's a lot of lower level actors that get paid not that much. And then there's crew, there's scripts, there's transpo. It's like all these people that make a movie happen.
Everybody.
Yeah. Catering, hair, makeup, and then you got all the post-production and editing.
In a small town, you're going to like revive their economy. Like there's like, I don't know, it's people like, like to make fun of like coastal elites and Hollywood liberals and whatever, but like we do actually like, create jobs one project at a time. And like, that's why I'm hopeful that we'll like be able to get production going again.
Yeah, it's writing's like cutthroat right now. I mean, I used to make a good living, just like picking up the scraps that fell off the big table and everything, and doing rewrites and script doctoring and stuff like that. But this past year, there are people with 10 times the name recognition I am fighting over the same piece of gristle that I used to eat off of. It's just been horrible this past like 8 months since the COVID restrictions, and it's not going to pick up. It's not going to get better anytime soon because COVID is, the numbers are rising again and everything, and it just makes everything. I mean, you sent me an article to it earlier, Pearson. We were talking that the Rolling Stone did. I'm just like, it's costing about $300,000 more per episode to make a TV show now.
I think it said 100 to 200,000. But yeah, if you still have 10 episodes, that's 150. I'm sorry, that's $1.5 million, roughly.
Yeah.
Like, no proper businessman wants to lose $1.5 million out of his own pocket.
Exactly. And getting nothing back, like that's what's been tough. Is like, and Netflix has canceled a lot of shows, not just mine, but like a number of other shows that I like. But I'm like, they're going to make Stranger Things, they're going to make, if they want to make or whatever, like their big flagship shows they'll make, but like all the others, I feel like are on the chopping block.
The stuff that's like actually has like meaning and everything, stuff that's like not like a cultural phenomenon, stuff that you just watch and it just like makes you feel good, like No Good Nick and a whole bunch of other things just went bye-bye. Like that, they just didn't even care, and it just crushes you. I mean, because a lot of people it's like stuff that creators are fans of, that we watch the most that tend to get canceled more so than not.
Totally.
But I mean, you got to look at like what he said. That's like 300 jobs out the door for a good like 6 months. That each show getting canceled is that, and that's that many more people that can't put food on the table for their family. I mean, because Hollywood isn't about, people who write or direct or act. It's about people who do the lighting, who serve the food, who do the hair and makeup, who clean up cleaning up. I mean,
absolutely.
That part, no. I do have a question about that too. So, because of COVID and everything, like we've seen how like the entertainment industry has taken such a big hit from it. As somebody who's like still trying to like, for myself, like build myself in terms of being an actor and doing music, do you feel like at this point that we can't even really like rely on like production to come back? And it seems to me that like you just kind of have to do everything on your own at this point. Like create your own content and put it on like YouTube or something like that. Like, is that?
I think that's fair. I think
I want to hear from somebody who's actually in the industry too. Like,
totally. I think if the option is to do nothing or to generate your own content and get it out there, then obviously generate your own content and get it out there. Whether it's music, if it's acting, find somebody, have Jason write you a short script and shoot it. Maybe you find somebody you can put on your own. But I do think the business will. There's too much money involved. Like honestly, like the studios, there's too much money at stake. They have to figure out ways to go back into production. So I don't think it's going to be forever. I do think it's going to be a lot less projects for the time being, like because they're going to have to only choose those things that they think they can bank on. They're not going to take as many flyers as they used to. So we all have to be patient like while that process plays out. But yeah, I mean, by all means, like generate something. Like we live in a weird time where you can be a TikTok star and like get a TV show. Like it happens.
I mean, that Hey Boomer Girl has something in development, from what I understand, with Netflix.
Yeah, exactly.
So she has like her own variety show coming.
Yeah. Sarah Cooper, who does like the Trump.
Oh yeah, the Trump TikTok. She's got one in development.
She got repped by like I think WME, and she sold a show. It's like she's super talented. Like she's really funny, and she figured out a way to get tens of millions of people to watch short content. Like if you have that skill, then by all means do it, and you'll be discovered.
What was it like? Like a lot of people and everything make web series to get noticed and stuff like that. That's something that I did early in my career with a series and everything when I had an idea. What's it like to revert back to that to do for that mobile app Quibi you said?
It's cool. We shoot it a lot like a movie. So we have a full 250 people on set. At least we did on season 1, and so we have a full crew and everything. But the content is shorter, so it's more about me when I'm writing it, like trying to create a cliffhanger every 7 or 8 minutes. If you guys check the show out, I hope you do. But it's every chapter, every short episode has a cliffhanger, so it's like constantly plot twist, plot twist, plot twist. I've never done anything like that where I have to create a plot twist like so quickly all the time. But it's fun. It makes it very easy to watch. I think all our attention spans are super short these days, so like. It's very like easy on the eyes to watch our show.
Yeah, it's definitely on my list because I try to watch absolutely everything and digest as much as everything as I can. Right now, I'm like stuck on like the whole Peacock original series things right now. So, but it's like definitely on my list, and that entire platform's like on my list and everything because that's what we do. Is just like watch everything.
Check it out.
It makes us better in what we do. So
you can watch Die Hard and then just cancel the app. You can just watch my show. That's fine.
I might do that.
I'll definitely be doing that.
I
probably won't cancel the app.
I know we're winding down on time, but I want to ask you guys before we go. I would like to do this as a thank you. I would like to phone bank for the person of your choice over the next 2 weeks. If you will each give me a name, I'm going to put them into my notes on my phone. I'm going to carve out time to phone bank individually for anybody of your choice, assuming they're not in the Republican Party.
Well, I would say just because he was here on our show like last week, I would say David Kim. So, and he's like a really good guy. So I'll say him. This is his year already. Yeah.
And plus, that's like I live like 2 blocks from Koreatown, so it's easy.
Crazy.
All right.
Yeah, Tripper, you're a class act. I gotta say that, man.
Yes.
So I'll also take advantage of your Texas roots that you have, and I'll say Donna Imam.
Yep.
Out in Austin.
Got it.
I'm going to send you to Florida for Adam Christensen because the man is like a freaking Big Mac and a Coke. He's American as hell, and he's just what we need right now. He's just beautiful in the way he thinks and what he does, and just he's young, amazing, and just he's just fucking awesome.
Got it. I got my little notes here. I'll get online tonight and I'll start searching to see when they've got time slots available to phone bank or text bank or whatever. But I will. I'll go hard on these people.
Thank you so much,
man. So we appreciate you.
Yeah. Tripper, it has been an absolute honor and a pleasure. It's been fun.
Yeah. Love it. Thank you guys for having me. We appreciate it.
Yeah, I think I can say for everyone else, we'd be happy to have you on again.
Anytime.
Hopefully in a democratically run society with Joe Biden as president.
This turns out okay the next couple of weeks. I'm scared, but
If not, I'm going to go join Sue in Portugal. So she's already told me I have a room there, so I'm good.
Oh,
thank you, Stu.
Indeed. Yep.
All right.